I scoured the internet and downloaded every MrBeast fan-made video game in existence. By that, I mean I went on itch.io and searched for MrBeast, and this is what popped up. The first game we're going to play today is called MrBeast Chocolate Factory. The description says it's a first-person shooter game based on the Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory movie. At the end of the game, you can win a chocolate factory. Sort of. What does that mean? Do you just get a sweaty handful of Skittles or something?
Welcome to the Beast Chocolate Factory. I am a robot created by MrBeast. He'll be controlling the doors for you. If you can pass through all the obstacles and enemies and retrieve the golden ticket, you keep the factory. Good luck and try not to die. Ha ha ha.
Okay, so you start off in this room where you have to avoid what I'm guessing is red gelatin. Okay, let's try that again. So as I was saying, you have to jump across all these platforms without dying a bunch. Then you'll reach the end of the stage. Now we're in the second level, and this is where you finally get a pistol. Now armed, you have to kill these gingerbread men that chase after you if you get too close. Well, they try to chase after you. Bless their little hearts. They weren't meant for a life of crime.
You're a monster!
But yeah, if the gingerbread men do catch up to you, they punch you. Once you finish off all the gingerbread men, you can then proceed to the next stage. In the third stage, guess what there is? Yep, there's more gingerbread men that you have to gun down. So it's the exact same thing as the second stage. I did figure out that you can hold down control to slow down time though. One strange thing I'm noticing about this chocolate factory is that there's barely any candy or chocolate in it. There's like 2 chiclets and a couple of lollipops. I feel like there's way more blood in this game than there is candy. Unless it's supposed to be strawberry syrup pouring out of the gunshot wounds. Also, there's not much sign of MrBeast anywhere. I guess MrBeast left one of his hamburgers for us? Maybe the walls are supposed to be made of sugar? They are kind of shiny and wet like someone's been licking them. MrBeast, have you been licking these walls? Have you been licking these sugar walls? The next level is a maze. You don't have a gun or anything, you just have to find the exit while avoiding like 3 gingerbread men. But you run so fast that they could never catch you, so it's pretty easy. On to the 5th level. There's somehow even less candy in here. But you do get a full-on assault rifle, which you use to take down that pesky gang of gingerbread men. But they don't get faster or more difficult or anything. I think it might serve the game well if the gingerbread men had guns too. That way they could, you know, shoot back. It's not much of a first-person shooter if you're the only person in the game with the gun. It's like rampaging through a Mario level with the shotgun. It's not much of a challenge really. So overall, MrBeast Chocolate Factory is a pretty solid game. Our next game is called MrBeast Squid Game, the video game. This has got to be based on the Squid Game video MrBeast did, and specifically the glass bridge game. But I'm not sure why player 456 is holding a knife, or why MrBeast is covered in blood. Let's go find out! Yep, we're definitely playing glass bridge, and I gotta say the graphics look pretty nice so far. This shouldn't be too hard. All we have to do is jump from one MrBeast emblazoned platform to another. Okay, I take that back. It's hard. It's very, very hard. Why? Because the controls are extremely unintuitive. Like, you can't seem to jump and move at the same time for some reason, which makes them clunky and unpredictable. All the while, they're also very sensitive, and the character has way too much momentum when you go to stop. If you do decide to play this for yourself, be warned, you will fall many, many times.
You're eliminated. You're eliminated. Get out of here.
And when you do fall, you'll fall just a little bit too slowly for how loudly you splat on the ground, which is both disconcerting and unsatisfying. On top of that, you get called an idiot for your efforts. So yeah, I think this is a roller coaster of emotions I don't want to ride. Our next game is called MrBeast's Fishy Business, and it looks like this game was made for the MrBeast Team C's Game Jam. Here's the description. Be a fish. Wow. Eat some garbage. So cool. Get a high score. Okay. Alright, let's get down to some fishy business. So in this game, you play as a big mouth fish that has to clean the ocean by sucking up garbage. That seems straightforward enough, but let me tell you, it's not. Just like the last game, the reason for this is that the fish is incredibly hard to control. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here, but it feels like the pivot point of the fish is way behind where it should be. So getting it to turn and angle towards the trash is very difficult. Then sometimes it just kind of goes upside down for no reason at all. And let's talk about the suction action. You can clearly see motion lines going into your mouth and hear this eternal sucking sound, but the trash doesn't actually get pulled into your mouth. Instead, you have to ever so carefully navigate it into your open jaws. Then once you've scooped up a bunch of bottles and trash bags, you have to come to the surface and spit the trash wad into the net. But getting the angle just right isn't easy. Luckily, after a couple minutes of this, the timer will eventually run out. Then you'll be shown your high score accompanied by the most unenthusiastic sound of cheering. So I'm guessing by the title that this next game was made in one day. It's called One Day Game Number 001 MrBeast. Okay, we're in. So I'm guessing the man you're controlling is supposed to be MrBeast, but he looks more like Friar Tuck. Then over here, there's Chandler. I'm not sure why he's dressed like a pilgrim or why Chris is a giant chef. Also, there's two Chandlers for some reason. Then there's this random homeless person that actually looks like a wizard that has a giant bag of cash. I'm guessing this game must be using a medieval pixel art asset pack. Cause how would anyone know this is supposed to be a MrBeast game if it weren't for the single MrBeast logo stuck on these bricks over here? Anyway, the goal of this game is to complete 4 challenges that are dispensed by a desktop computer without running out of money or time. For example, in the first challenge you have to hold down random keys for 5 seconds. Then you earn money by running around the island. Yep, that's it, you just have to run. The more you run, the more money you make. Then you can gain time by giving money away. But no matter how much or how little money you give away, the timer always resets back to 2 minutes. You also have the option to mug any of the characters, but if you do this, you'll lose and your audience will hate you, you're told. Once you complete the 4 challenges and earn $1 million, you win. I think overall this game could be fun, but it just needs a little more time in the oven before it can be called finished. Speaking of games that aren't finished, I'd like to take a second to point out that many of the games I came across weren't actually playable for one reason or another. Like this one for instance. It's called the MrBeast game Early Access. When you start the game, all it does is show you the static background, and if you click on things, you are taken to the developer's Twitch channel or MrBeast's merch store, which is kind of a letdown. Imagine going to play your favorite game, and when you press start, you're taken to Amazon.com. Here's another game called MrBeast's Day Off, but it also had some major issues, which is a shame because the captions seem really promising. On days such as this one, MrBeast would have a day off. He would take off his fake mustache and breathe in the unfiltered air. Dar Man was with him this Tuesday, chilling beside him, rocking that same structured beard, more weak looking than ever without the mustache's presence. In MrBeast's pocket, he had a stack of money. He ran his fingers through the banknotes as if he was counting them. A lick on the finger was also done somewhere during the flicking. But the only thing that works is the link to the person's Twitter account. Then, under the install instructions, it just says sex. I gotta admit, I downloaded it and tried everything, but I couldn't get the game to run. Now we move on to what might be the most visually appealing MrBeast game that I found. It's another game called MrBeast's Chocolate Factory. But unlike the first game we played, which was a first-person shooter, this game feels a lot more like the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that we know and love. To start off, you find yourself in a magical and whimsical landscape scattered with gumdrops and lollies. And in the distance, you can see the chocolate factory, complete with smokestacks spewing sweet detritus into the clear blue sky. When you approach the doors of this magical building, they're blown clean off as a large poster of MrBeast welcomes you inside. Before you lies a great expanse of color and wonder. There's candies and bonbons of all shapes and sorts laid out before you. There's even a chocolate waterfall and a river that lazily flows across the landscape with a gondola drifting in its gentle current. Just ahead, you see a group of jelly beans surrounding a floating candy bar. Once you reach them, you realize they're your competitors in a series of minigames that are about to commence. In the first minigame, your block has to paint as many squares as possible before the timer runs out. How charming. In the second minigame, you have to dodge falling chocolate squares, which isn't too hard. The third one is a typing challenge where you have to enter the letters as quickly as possible. Dang it, I lost. But that's the thing I soon realized. I'd be doing that a whole lot. For you see, playing this game is a lot like the original Willy Wonka because it messes with your head. But instead of playing mind games, in this, you play mini games. Except the mini games are so punishing and impossible that they end up being mind games again. Take this minigame for instance. All you have to do is snatch up chocolate bars, Hungry Hippo style, that appear before the other players do. But the other players have exceptionally fast reaction times, like lightning fast. And every time you get eliminated, you have to start at the very beginning of the whole game. You have to walk the long path to the factory and play all the minigames again. What's worse is when you do get a game over, which believe me you will, the game taunts you by saying you'll never get to see what secrets lay behind those giant doors unless you try again. After playing through the game too many times to count, I did eventually get better at the minigames. But it didn't matter because, inevitably, the game would just freeze for no apparent reason and I'd have to start over again. Another reason I think this game messes with your mind is that every time you make it through a minigame, you somehow end up at the bottom of the chocolate river. At first I thought maybe it might have just been because we were close to the river or we fell through the bridge or something. But nope, after every minigame you end up floating face down in the river, which you realize is actually a river of blood because as you gaze through its crimson waters, the entire factory is whizzing away awash in a deathly red. I'm sorry to say that after many attempts, I wasn't able to see what was beyond those glorious doors. Overall, I'd say this game is a great idea and really fun when it works, but a few major bugs keep it from reaching its full potential. Have you ever dreamed of working at a MrBeast burger joint? Well, pull your heads out of the clouds because this next game allows you to do just that. MrBeast Burger Simulator, made by a developer named The Missing Bracket, is a lifelike fast food restaurant simulator where you even get to play as MrBeast himself. The object of this game is pretty simple. All you have to do is cook up hamburgers and serve them to customers that come into your shop to earn points. If you take too long, the customers start to get angry. But luckily, you can buy the patrons off and make them temporarily happy by handing them a wad of greasy cash while you complete their order. You're also instructed to pile cash on top of the finished hamburgers to make your customers even more happy.
Hey, I said I wanted my cash on the side. I can't believe this.
Watch out. Sometimes they'll even try to get into the kitchen to swipe a burger. As you're running around the kitchen throwing ingredients together, you have to be careful though because if you leave anything on the stove for too long, it will burn. But don't worry too much about cooking things to temp because customers don't seem to notice if you serve them raw meat or food that's fallen on the floor. Just remember to sprinkle a little bit of cash on it and they'll be fine. Now you may have been asking yourself this whole time, why does MrBeast have noodly arms and spaghetti legs? And I asked myself the exact same question. But the only reasonable conclusion I could come to is that staying extremely supple is what allows MrBeast to move so fast. And let's be honest, when you're as rich as MrBeast is, does it matter if you have wet toilet paper for legs?
MrBeast, what's going on with your legs?
In conclusion, this game gets a lot of things right. It has MrBeast, it has MrBeast Crew, it has Beast Burgers, it has noodle arms, and it has literal piles of cash everywhere that you can give away to make people happy. Honestly, this game is really silly and fun and you should try it out for yourself. So that's every MrBeast fan-made video game I could find. If you'd like to see a game project of mine, check this one out, and who knows, maybe I'll make my own MrBeast game next.